Hey, it's Stu, and this is a bit of a mid-December reading update. It's going to include kind of a update on what I've read, although I won't go into it. I'll save that for maybe a potential reading weekend review video. Where I'm at in a couple of reads, what I think I have my next week TBR or a couple weeks TBR, because once this week's gone, my reading for the rest of the month is going to be impacted by company and traveling and holidays and all of those things. And then I did a little mini haul from Little Free Libraries. I had to run some errands today and I stopped by some. So first, what I have finished in the order of finishing them since the last video that I made of the reading wrap-up video was Hannah Witton's For the Wolf. I also finished Fredrik Backman's My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. This book is going to my niece, who I think would really enjoy it. And it's a buddy read. Another buddy read is Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. And that I finished last night. I had started listening to, a few days ago, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Today it was nice enough for me to do an actually several mile walk. So that and a little bit of sleeplessness has gotten me more than halfway through listening to this book. It is a great listen. I am really glad that I chose to listen to this book. So this I am relatively confident will get done. I also started reading, as I talked about before, Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses. This is on one of my 10 till the end, as is this, right? And I'm, more than halfway. So even a DNF, I still think qualifies as a read at this point. I just can't stay in the story, as I said before. And to be honest, I haven't tried in the last few days. I haven't tried to give it, another 100-page push or another, chapter or vignette push a chance. And that's where I'm at with this. Still working on it. I started Wallace Stegner's Crossing to Safety and put it down and chose to read The Parable of the Sower instead. I just didn't think it was the right vibe, the right switch, based on all of the things that I was kind of reading around it. And now I'm like 7 chapters in, and chapter 6 was like this long conversation that just didn't work for me. Like if I were sitting and listening to this conversation that I just read, like at a dinner party, as one that I just went to, I would be mildly like engaged and then kind of be like, oh, all right, I need to go somewhere else. A little of the discussion of poetry was relevant because I just listened to Anne Wright talk about the Wren and her use of poetry. So that captured me a little bit. Mostly I was like, this book is reading way more like a memoir to me. And it did say part autobiographical story. And I'm just not, I keep saying it over and over. And so we know it to be true. I'm not in my memoir era. I'm just not. And I think I am finding the cost of things, especially since it's reflecting on like the cost of things from the 30s to the 70s. And then I'm looking at the 1970s when I was alive till now. Like there's this huge discussion in the first chapter of this book where they're like, and this is what rent is going to cost. And this is how we're barely going to scrape by on a professor's salary. That was really relatable to me, this many years later. I also liked sort of like the scope of this reflection, albeit memory from like the life. This is Wallace Stegner's maybe last book, which he wrote in his 80s. I'm going to keep giving it a try, but I did step out of it. I am not in the drag me along reading time. Like I'm not in the mood to be dragged along. And to be fair, the Satanic Verses, for whatever reason, is kind of my drag along book. And so I'm stepping back out of that Wallace Stegner, and just to see if maybe just stepping away from it, if maybe just the kinds of books that I read in front of it again and around it were really impacting my ability to kind of focus on the tone and pacing of that book. So this was a like read it on Holiday impromptu on my like backup TBR for December, and that's Samantha Jane Ellen's Pay Dirt Road. This is an arc that I found at a little free library about a year ago. It's one of the books I have longest on my shelf, and I'm surprised it stuck around because normally with mystery thriller, I'm like, okay, if I haven't read it and I got a new mystery thriller, I like recycle them that way, because there are some there are some that I remember, but most of them I was looking through like since I started tracking, it was like 300 books that I've read. And when I come to the mystery thrillers, I'm like, I remember that it was a mystery thriller. Maybe there's a girl missing, maybe there was a murder to solve, but I can't remember anything else about it. And that's kind of how I find this genre, mostly unmemorable, which doesn't mean they aren't the right read from time to time. I don't necessarily think I remember it forever means I wouldn't read it. I don't remember it forever, rather it means that I wouldn't read it. Of course, it wouldn't make it in, like, I think that's kind of a criteria for most people's like best reads ever, is the things that they're still thinking about months, days, years, decades later, right? But Please See Us, I did really like. It was the last mystery thriller. Setting was Atlantic City. The setting is sort of small town Texas, a little too cliche in the way that it's being set up for me, but I need to just kind of like Friday Night Lights, just being done like in college or just out of college, back still doing with like small town teenage drama. That's what's happening in these first chapters of the book. Not unrelatable. I don't know. It was certainly pulling me along quite a bit better than Crossing to Safety. So we'll see. If I finish this, it'll be tonight or tomorrow. And if not, and I can say that honestly about this and Crossing to Safety, if they're just like, if I'm not really engaged or even go as far as enthralled, I'm willing to just kind of unhaul them and let them go. That's fine. Let's talk about a couple other books that I really hope to get to. The first is Muriel by Rula Jabril. I have this in audio, and that's the only way it'll probably work for me. And I actually had hoped to get to it before The Night Circus, because The Night Circus is like a very long, it's, you know, a 500 and some page book. So it's a long listen. This isn't. It's like made 8-10 hour listen. And so I thought that I could get to this through some walks and a couple of commutes before I was done commuting. I didn't. I hope to still get to it. It is a recent haul, but I hope to get to it because I would like to watch the movie with a guest that's coming, if we can find it. If we can find some streaming service that offers this movie, maybe even through my library, I haven't looked yet, with a friend that's coming next week. So hopefully, I did get a really long walk in today, and I'm much further into The Night Circus than I anticipated, but I still have half of the book to go. And if we're talking about 1 hour listens and I still have 10 hours of the book to go, or 8 hours of the book to go, it's like the subtotal of this book. So I hope to get to this. I hope it's going to be an audio. And then I did get this at a thrift store, but I would unhaul this into a little free library very happily. Next, I hope, like, there are 2 books that I think I will hopefully put on my reading list for like the week where the holiday is, and where I'm going to have company and probably less reading time, but I might be able to squeak out a little. The first is The Kingdom of Sweets by Erica Johannesson. And since I hauled this, which is like 6-7 months ago, I thought, okay, that's going to be on my December/holiday reading list. It's a retelling of The Nutcracker. I don't necessarily think this book is going to be so much for me, and I thought that when I hauled it. And certainly when I hauled it, I didn't realize that I was going to go through like a month of reading way more fantasy than I would ever. Like, if I read a fantasy book in a month, I'm really proud of myself, because I'm not a fantasy reader. I'm not, again, everyone can like the genres they like. Isn't that beautiful that the diversity is out there so that we all get what we like? But I'm just not really a fantasy reader. So I already kind of worried about my ability to stay inside of a fantasy story, but thought I would give it a try. Now here we are, and I have been reading a lot of fantasy and a lot of big books. So I hope that that I get to this, and whatever I get to in that week of holiday, that is what I'll accept of this book, unless it's just like really great and I'm like, it's okay, I can set it down and get to it, like what, in my travel time or something like that. This, I really want to get to this middle grade. As I read Snow Child and For the Wolf, I would love to get to this fantastic, gorgeous middle grade telling of these fairy tales, and I would very much like to get to this in the physical. Now, it is like nighttime in my basement apartment all of the time. There's like no natural light coming in here at all because there's hardly any natural light outside because of storms and overcast. Perfect reading situation. However, not for me in like not reading in unnatural light. The brightness that I needed gives me headaches a lot of times, and so that's why I'm doing a lot of things digital, because I can do the dark background and change the brightness and things that really help, or change the font if I start to feel like I'm getting a headache, and still read when I have desire and time to read, and not let my headaches mandate if I'm reading or not. And I want this to be physical. I also hope to get to this because there is a friend whom I would very much like to give this to at the end of this holiday season. In addition to that, my furnace kicked on and I think it's loud, so I wanted to move it over a little, my mic setup. Anyway, in addition to that, I really hope to get to, over the weekend, Kristin Hannah's The Great Alone. This was kind of impromptu, but I thought that this would be a great read after The Snow Child, as the setting was Alaska, and I think it's kind of addressing setting and theme the similar way to this does, but this is like, Snow Child is magic realism and this is historical fiction. So I thought it would be a great time to try to get to this book. I also have a person who I want to give this book to in Portland, Oregon, where I will travel for the new year. So there's kind of double reasons I want to try to get this book. Bit of a chunker, kind of running out of reading time. So it's a lofty goal and it's kind of bumping other things, but I hope to get to it. Likewise, I pulled The Furrows by Namwali Serpil off my shelf because I DNF'd very early Baking Cakes in Kigali, and I thought that I still don't have that many books with African authors or African settings, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss an opportunity, even if that book wasn't for me, Baking Cakes in Kigali, to read the continent of Africa. So, and I also kind of really liked that this, like, it's the Southern Hemisphere in my mind, and that's the situation the Southern Hemisphere is in while we're up here under snow, ice, water, rain, etc. So again, this is a hope. I hope to, if I don't, this one won't get on hold, it'll just get reshelved, and I hope to maybe get to it in January, or when I might do the diversity reading bingo, in which case it'll give me more time to sit and think about the African authors. I just hauled actually several three more books by African authors and in African settings in the last haul video, and I actually pulled this before that. So opportunities abound. I just hope to get to this. I have one book that I don't have sitting in front of me, and all I have to say is we shall see. And that is The Essex Serpent. And why I want to talk about that is because it's on my 10 to the end. I don't know. I mean, like, I have a few more days of reading. It looks pretty mapped out here. So I would love to get to that book before the beginning of January, but I'll be happy if I start it and then just finish it in January. I think that's a really reasonable goal to set myself without feeling some kind of weird pressure or not reading things that are like, right now I really want to and need to enjoy my reading. So I have these plans, but I know that they could also kind of get shuffled around because that's where I am. And I also just know, like, reading goals can just go out the window for the last 2 weeks of this month. I just want to talk a little bit about, I ran some errands today. I always have a tote of on haul because 100% of things that I read, I unhaul. Okay, 99%. I've decided to maybe, perhaps, I haven't started doing this yet. Keep Jumpa Lahiri, I haven't unhauled Whereabouts yet, and Louise Erdrich, and I have unhauled everything so far by Louise Erdrich, but now I was like, you know what, I think I want to keep those two as collections for whatever reasons, but everything else gets unhauled. Friends of the library to friends to Little Free Libraries. So I have a giant tote just full of books because every time you see me do a review video, there's 5 to 7 books in it. They go in the tote. So it's in my car, run errands, stop at the Little Free Libraries near where I run errands, and I found a couple books of interest today. The Little Free Libraries were pretty full, and it's really, really, really rainy. So I didn't just unhaul all of my books, which I'm good to do right now, because both the weather and B, there's actually quite a few books in them. So there's no reason to overstep them with books that could get damaged when I could just wait a little bit and then fill them up when, every once in a while, people just come and clear them out for, I don't know if they're doing it to try to resell, if they're doing it to be just nasty. I don't know why, but every once in a while, you'll pull up on a Little Free Library that had a lot of books and all of a sudden it's empty, or you'll read a note by the owner or the steward of the Little Free Library that says, please don't do that, for the person doing that, etc. I can keep my tote pretty full in my vehicle for when I make these Little Free Library runs or for when the weather is better, and if I see that, just fill them up with these books as well. Today I traded. When light is like water, I would have totally passed up. Actually, I was gonna just pass up this Little Free Library, and for some reason I pulled this out and I read a little bit about it. And by the way, this is by Molly McCloskey. And this is an American woman going to Ireland, so an Irish American, I believe, going to Ireland. Maybe mom is Irish. I think there's some grief. Like, this is exploring grief. I think the mother passed away. And the blurb and the front is by Anne Enright. And there was some back in the description who's describing Molly McCloskey as, Rachel Cusk is giving a blurb for Molly McCloskey's writing. So the Anne Enright is for this actual book, and Rachel Cusk, who I haven't read yet, but who I just hauled 3 books from if you lost my last haul video. So I thought, yeah, this is a book gonna give a chance, even though I'm not really in a, like, let's give books a chance. I have enough books that I don't need to be really experimental anymore. The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates was an exciting find. This is a nonfiction. It is absolutely not my nonfiction era, but this book is his exploration of how stories are told and how that impacts us as readers, as listeners, as a collective, and as individuals. And I like his mind. I like his work. So I have more enthusiasm around reading this than I normally do when I haul nonfiction, and then I say, am I going to read it? It sits on my shelf for a few months, and then I unhaul it. The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins is going to go on the mystery thriller shelf. It might bump something else, but why I hauled it is because I was looking at Listomania for the 52 book club book challenge, and one of the prompts is a book that shows up in some kind of film or TV show. I would need a list for that. I'd have to look that up. Like, it's not something that I can just, like, a lot of them, I'm like, I'll just read books and then see where they fit. But this one I needed help. I had originally planned to read and still might keep that plan to read Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar, which I have and want to read this year. However, that's a heavy book on really heavy topics. And so if when I get to the prompt, or when I or not, I have this backup option, which is also a movie, so I could read it, and then, you know, anything that is also a movie serves for me to read and then watch the movie with friends if we can find it. This Lauren Groff, Matrix, is a bit more experimental than I think I wanted to be. However, I pulled it, and from what I understand about it, I think the setting is England. I think there is some magic, maybe, and some sort of like female magic, feminism in this book, and it says it gathers currents of violence, sexuality, religious ecstasy, and a mesmerizing portrait of consuming passion, abhorrent faith, and women whom history moves both through and around. Yeah, that was enough for me to think, let me give this book a chance. And this author, who I don't know that much about, a chance. The Stone Home by Crystal Hannah Kim the setting is South Korea. And I have Pachinko, and I think that's, oh, and I have a graphic novel. That's my only South Korean representation on all of these shelves, and so I was excited to find this. This is a family story as well. I believe this is about relationships between mothers and daughters, and maybe between the brothers as well. I think this is historical fiction. I think that this gave me sort of small things like these vibes, meaning interrogating some things that governments and systems were complicit in that caused harm to humans, and then the humans surviving and or thriving and or telling the story. So that's what I think is happening in this book. I have a great deal of enthusiasm around this book. I was super happy to find it as an ARC as well. I'm happy to find ARCs because that means that they're getting recirculated and other people get to love them and enjoy them, and they are where they should be, in the Little Free Library, still being circulated for free. So that was the last of that little haul, and this might be the last of me for this year, depending on if I can squeak out any time when I have a house full of guests and or I'm traveling to other places where am I gonna actually make videos. But in any case, I hope everyone is happy Hanukkah. Christmas is coming, has a happy Christmas and a happy New Year. And like I said, I don't think I'm gonna be able to make another video before the new year, and I don't know if we're gonna hear about any of the books I brought up here in it at all, and I'm okay with that. I'll just pick up with the new year with my new TBR and what's gonna go on for my new year reading and reading goals and reading challenges. Till then,